program is intended for mature audiences.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
Take him to Detroit.
No! No, not Detroit! No! No, please! Anything but that! No!
It's yet another in a long series of diversions in an attempt to avoid responsibility.
So, what would you little maniacs like to do first?
The question isn't what are we going to do, the question is what aren't we going to do?
Ludicrous speed! Go!
Live from the Raw Radio X studios in the Russell Bazaar Center. This is the IT and the D Show, episode 5. The Something 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 Strikes Back. We got two great guests today, Chris Martello, Hillary Weaver, and we're live.
Yes, we are. Thank God.
Hello.
And the geek is actually in control of the technology, so God help us all.
The inmates are running the asylum.
A nice last-minute curveball that got thrown at us that, hi, hey, here's the soundboard. Have a great night.
Yeah, and good luck with that.
So just to let you guys know how to get a hold of us, you can find us at Detroit.
Did you get the number?
You can find us at DetroitNet.org. You can tweet us at ITInTheD, or you can find us on our Facebook page at ITInTheD. We do have a call-in number, but we have no idea what it is now because we're running the studio by ourselves.
It's 313.
We are finding it right now. Was there a niner in there? We're finding it. Nobody needs a call-in right now.
Wow, we are a well-oiled machine, I tell you. So we've got
313-462-0107.
Right.
462.
Although I just realized I don't know how to answer the phone if somebody calls. So
just tweet us.
So Dave's personal cell phone number is...
Yeah, right. All right, so here we are sitting around. We brought Chris and Hillary in, not contrary to Bob's popular belief, not because they're QA people so that he can sit here and play the Crickets app all night, but because they're good people. They know IT, and they're fun, and we like to hang out with them.
Now, Chris and Hillary are regular Detroit Net peeps. That's priority number one. They always come to our networking events. With Hillary more than Chris.
I don't know. I wouldn't say that about that.
Thanks, guys. It's great to be on the show. 5 seconds for the first call out. Awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, you guys are regular Detroit Net guys, and definitely on the QA side of the spectrum. So we thought we'd have a good show about.
Well, and I guess that's
about what?
Crickets.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You missed the cue.
Weak. No, so I guess that's a good question. We were talking about how to kick off the show and what do we want to talk about. So I guess that's a good question or a good topic. Is what? Wow, that was only 4.5 minutes late. Thanks,
That's
Bob.
the last time I'll do that.
So what brought you guys to us in the first place? Because and I guess just as the backstory, because this is how this all unfolded. Chris and Jeff and Bob and I were over at Jeff's house one day for a barbecue, just kind of hanging out for Jeff's birthday. And Chris said, okay, look, here's the deal. I need to be on the show with you guys. And we said, okay, but here's the deal with that. If we have you on the show, talking anything remotely QA, and we don't have Hillary on the show, she's going to kill us all. So that's sort of how that all came to be. So what brought you guys to Detroit Net, and why the show, and what brings two QA people to us?
Ladies first, please. Hillary.
So Chris.
Way to throw her on the bus.
Thank you, Chris. I started going to Detroit Net because I was working as a team lead in a startup software company and was looking to hire more people for my team. And then I met Dave.
And you foolishly put your faith in us. That was
Jeff,
awesome.
And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Great story.
Yeah, no
Thanks.
kidding. Can you tell it again? You got enough time, boys.
I'm a bad storyteller.
Can we talk about your gluten-free beer?
Yeah, what are we
that
drinking?
Size when you open it, it doesn't make a psh sound. It just goes. Oh.
It's like Perry Air from Spaceballs.
It is. I'm drinking New Planet Pale Ale, which is a gluten-free beer. It's
where does one procure gluten-free beer?
Yeah, where do you find such?
I got this at the new Whole Foods in Midtown.
Oh, someone
cool.
shop there?
You're the one.
A lot of people shop there. It's
really.
It's busy there. It's not the best gluten-free beer. There's not a lot of good gluten-free beers. It's hard to make gluten-free beer. It's hard to make good beer without
Mark was here
barley, wheat,
falling down
rye.
to talk about how does one make gluten-free beer.
Well, yeah, because don't the basic ingredients of hops yeast, sugar.
Hops, yeast, and sugar
Barley.
are all fine. Barley.
We could all do it. It'd just be for the
Sorghum.
chemistry thing. It'd be kind of,
soy substitute.
a little tough.
That's where the gluten comes
sorghum
from.
and rice and hops and yeast. Yeah. That's
All right, so back.
Wait, isn't this an IT show?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Back on track, Chris. I guess what was me and Dave talk about all the time about networking, right? And me being a sales guy, I network for different reasons than Dave and Jeff do, right? And I don't know if you're in the same boat, because we said, if you find 100 people at a networking event, there's probably 100 different reasons on why they network. So, I mean, what was one of the reasons why you was a regular?
Well, one of the things I learned from a good friend of mine.
And I'm sorry, but just real quick, Andy Westmoreland, you're absolutely correct.
Yes,
it
this
is
is mass
completely
chaos,
going to be
right.
chaos
Yeah, I
here
just
in the evening.
retweeted that for him. Yeah. Thanks for the shout out.
Awesome. So the deal with IT networking is if you have to network, it's too late. So you might as well start now. And now for me was about 5 years ago with you guys. Yeah. And so,
I mean, is your thing try to keep get 20 close friends in the industry of something you were at entertainment, right? And when that bailed out, you were kind of, high and dry for a minute.
Yeah, you saw the writing on the wall with that.
I
well in advance.
Could have predicted that a little early, yes. And
right.
so it was time to move on and find something different.
There's no marketing coupon books, by the way? Who would have thought?
I don't know.
Coupons?
Coupon.
Coupon?
Who are you, Ron White?
So,
we always have that yearly debate. Is it coupon or coupon? So I just
No, actually, we don't have that debate.
Well, it's the imperial we. Bob has that with himself in the mirror in the bathroom. That's what he does.
Okay, back to Chris.
So, but yeah, just get to know people, put your face in front of them, get your name out there, and just be together and learn how the IT industry works. I mean, the longer you hang out with these people, the more you learn about how small and close knit it is, and you run into people from 2 and 3 jobs ago on your next job, and you got friends.
Well, you kind of had a trial by fire because your background is not IT. I mean, you dove into it feet first from a different industry.
That's correct. Most testers and folks in the IT industry come from a math or a program or a computer science degree, and I came from a teaching background. I was a science teacher. And
well, Dave, you were a biology major, weren't you?
Biochem, yeah.
Biochem, organic.
I guess I'm the only geek with a comp sci degree. Whatever.
You actually may be. You may be one of the few in the
I have a computer
people.
science degree.
Do you?
I also have an art degree, but I have a computer
Wait, you
science
graduated from college?
Ouch.
I did.
Let's focus there for a minute. Well, and Chris has actually been a guest writer for us for one of our entries before, and we've kind of built our own notoriety around the "Don't Be That Guy" series of blog entries. And
Dave and I swapped a couple of stories and learned that we had some folks in common. And I'm like, well, I got a couple of stories that I could tie to this
individual
theme.
who shall remain nameless.
Yeah, they're always nameless.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. So this theme and put a couple of different scenarios to that, and not just the one particular flavor. We had a system admin, quality assurance tester.
And which post are we talking about? Let's spell it out.
I think it's how not to suck at a developer, right?
No, it was the angry sysadmin.
Angry sysadmin one, and so that was the key to it. But when you start exploring the different themes and genres in the office, you get a couple of different personalities, right? So angry sysadmin was the first one, but then you get the taskmaster, you get that project manager who just wants to crack the whip every chance he gets.
Yeah, great schedule, but great schedule managers, but not people.
Nice idea, but yeah, thanks.
I'm a people person.
And then right after that, I was like, well, you got this lead developer sometimes who just has the most elitist attitude in the world and is very intelligent, very smart, knows how to code an application, but can't work with a team. And those kind of folks just don't.
You mean they don't have people skills?
Project.
Well, Dave, didn't you write a blog about that a long time with the fish tank principles?
Yeah, the beta fish.
Yeah. Where it doesn't matter how pretty the fish is if you put one bad fish in the tank.
Oh no, not the puffer fish. No, the beta fish, which was it's real pretty and it's really nice to look at. But if you put another one in the same tank, they will fight until one of them is dead, and that's just how it goes. And it doesn't matter if it's a developer or an admin or anybody else.
And I've seen enough of those in my world that was just a natural. Personality that I needed to put in there. So, and I think like the third one was the QA guy who is constantly pointing out people's mistakes, and that's really hard.
QA people never do that.
Well, it's a really hard rule. You got to work with that because the job of QA is basically to go into that team room and talk to those developers and say, "Hello, your baby is ugly."
Nice.
And not only do you have to tell them that, you have to get them to agree with you because you need to make sure that this application is up and working and functioning. And part of that is pointing out other people's mistakes. It's a really hard job. It's really hard.
That was Drew a mic drop from like 10 years ago. That baby ugly.
Nice. Well, no, but it is important. I mean, and I guess, that's one of the things, we just yakking about, the industry and what we do in Detroit, something I know, Hillary, you've actually just recently hopped in and taken a job downtown. How's that working out for you?
It's actually pretty sweet. It's
as long as, there's not a movie filming around your building.
Need for Speed was filming. They blocked off Campus Martius. I couldn't cross the damn street.
Well, and that was Thursday because we actually headed downtown, and it was like
you weren't involved with that at all, Bob, were you?
No.
Were you in that movie?
I may or may not be in the movie.
Yeah. The other extra.
Yeah, exactly. Get out of the shot. But I thought it was and it was funny because like we had recruiters at CompuWare that knew we were coming down, and a recruiter from Quicken that knew we were coming down. Like both all emailed us maps, and you emailed us one too, and I just thought it was ironic that there was a nice little pentagram surrounding Campus Martius and the CompuWare building.
The CompuWare building is it's a pentagon, so
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I had never noticed that before.
I think the best part about that date, I left at what did we leave? 5:30?
Yeah,
5:15?
No, 5:15.
And I was supposed to go to happy hour at Ocean Prime in Troy, and I didn't walk in my front door till 7:15 in Auburn Hills. Literally,
it was ridiculous.
2 hours to get.
It made me remember how much I hate downtown rush hour traffic.
Well, there used to be for a while there was no traffic, and now all of a sudden you have
because there was nobody.
There was nobody down there. There's no jobs.
You moved 20,000 people downtown overnight, and
shocker. There's traffic.
Crazy.
Well, and I have to, as a newer team member, I have to take a shuttle from my parking spot, which is in Corktown, to Campus Martius. So I had to wait with a ton of other people that are also newer team members parked way the hell out there.
It's kind of like working at the airport.
Yeah, have to wait in the rain on this clogged side street because Need for Speed is filming and blocking off all the streets.
Dave's got a red meter on his screen ticking up constantly.
I'm sorry. I just had the geek moment of panic where the screen went black. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do.
Well, the big soundboard behind you is still working, so that's fine. I think.
As long as the lights are blinking. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. We did get a tweet so somebody can actually hear us.
Well, Stephanie actually said Martello sounds good, so there you go.
Oh, good. Yeah, so Stephanie likes you. That's awesome. That's So, but I mean, by and large, other than the whole, Need for Speed thing, so you're downtown, and is it all it's cracked up to be? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's a big push to get people. There's an article that came out. Was it New York Times
today?
Yeah, today. All about how and we can vouch for this. I mean, we don't know a single recruiter right now that's not looking for mobile developers, and that was the focus of the article. Was how Detroit companies are really hard pressed for or hunting hard for mobile development over and over and over again right now.
Not just the insourcing from GM, but the building the new tech center. They're hiring 4,000 people for Warren.
That's Warren.
Well, companies like
they're still bringing them local.
Yeah, exactly. Like all the companies in the Madison building, like Up2 App and Are You a Human and Dev Detroit. All those companies are building web apps direct.
Well, and you know what? If we're going to mention Are You a Human, we have to mention yet again that Karina Joe sucks for leaving the state. So let's just be clear.
I love Detroit, and I'm leaving.
Yeah, I'm all about the D, and I meant Denver.
So, I mean, other than the traffic...
Oh, that's right. I actually asked you a question. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm used to it.
Her mic's still on?
Is it? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Unfortunately, that was the unspoken.
That was like the sound her beer makes when she opened it.
It is pretty awesome. There's a lot of cool stuff going on downtown. I can go on to Campus Martius at lunch and hear music and eat at one of the food truck rallies or whatever, slows, their shacks and stuff that they've got down there. Last Thursday, I got some fresh vegetables at Eastern Market, had a little stand in there in Calic Square, I think it is.
Nice.
It's not like there's a beach bar now in Campus Martius.
There's a beach
very
bar.
Cool. Yes.
Is it cool?
Yeah,
they
very
brought
cool.
like
I was down there for a refresh Detroit.
Yeah, a couple tons of sand. Yeah.
It's
they actually have beach Adirondack chairs.
In a theoretical sense, I guess. I don't know if I want to hang out.
Of course,
in
it's a big
Detroit,
mud pit now with a monsoon rains that just came through.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a
they
nice
probably didn't think
pit.
that one through.
Details. Well, apparently neither did my backyard because even with the drainage system
or my barbecue grill.
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry about that.
So that's one of the things that I'm kind of curious too. You got all the mobile app jobs that are opening up. the talent short? Where's the talent coming from? Because they were saying a lot of those jobs are going to be fresh college grads. There's got to be other programs to fill that. So I mean, where are those people coming from?
Well, and that's the hard part. I mean, it's fresh college grads, but then that's who can fill it. But you look at all these job recs, and it's 2 years of experience, 3 years of experience. Last time I checked, getting a piece of paper from a college didn't really qualify as experience.
And not only do you have the lack of developers who can develop for mobile, you also have the lack of experience on the testing side to be able to test for mobile.
Oh, go ahead, make it all about you. Go ahead.
It is. I mean, sorry. So you have these folks that come into the shop and they start developing mobile. And it's like, who's going to test it and how? Because now the testing is difficult at best to automate. There's not a whole lot of tools that help with the mobile platforms in order to test it. So you have to rely on a lot of manual testing. And then you're sitting at a desk or in a QA lab and you got 15 to 20 different devices and platforms that you got to test on and make sure that they work.
Everyone just doesn't have an iPad or an iPhone?
There's another world out there called Android.
I just like to throw that out there to really twist it into Dave,
I'm with Dave on this one. I'm not no Apple.
But Chris has a point. I mean, you've got multiple devices, multiple screen resolutions, and you can't just have it, the right once run everywhere mantra of back in the day doesn't work for apps.
Well, yeah, you've got the old school world where you had sort of the crossover with screen resolution. Am I developing? You go way back. It was 640 by 480,
right.
And then 960 by 1020, and then 10. So I mean, now it's a much different world because you've got one platform mobile now equals. God, what is it?
3 or 4,
36 different resolutions. So yeah. I mean, you've got the standard of iPhone and iPad and all that kind of stuff. But once you start talking about Android, you've got the Galaxy, you've got the Samsung, and they all have slightly different
It's
resolutions.
those testing heuristics, right? You got a matrix full of different browsers and versions, and then you got the mobile platform plus devices. So you have
and Dave's eyes just glazed.
No, actually, I just went to the Matrix.
Yeah. You have
and me without my Neo jacket.
A testing
Those
matrix.
are my eyes glazing.
I'm sorry, I can't see you.
Yeah, I was actually my eyes just glazed reflectively off of Bob. Is how that worked.
Thought Bob was going to play Bob was going to play the YouTube clip of that guy snoring.
Absolutely. The testing matrix for mobile gets really hairy when you start including the different versions, plus the platforms, plus all the different flavors, and then it's hard to automate that. And there's a couple of different tools that you can use. You can use something called Test Swarm. That's pretty cool because you can dial down the versions and the browsers, and you can get a little closer in order to validate your front end JavaScript.
So and is that something that by and large, hopefully Dev brings QA into the mix early? Like, do you warn them about this stuff ahead of time? Where do developers tend to go horribly wrong? Because I mean, it's
do you have all day?
Well, we've got an hour.
Stephanie wants to know if it's a nursery full of ugly babies.
And I've been in a few of those. No, so I mean, you've got people hopefully floating around, that from a systems architect,
you need a good
whatever
business
perspective
analyst in order to help that along, because otherwise QA is kind of like
nobody listens to analysts.
Always playing catch up. QA is always playing catch up to that.
Hence the first 4 letters in the title. And the second word.
Busy.
No.
Wow, that was nice stretch, Bob. Thanks for playing. Let's go ahead and just turn your mic down.
I'll go back to sleep.
No, I think what you're referring to, Dave, is the assumptions. I mean, there's people and business analysts out there who assume that, QA is testing this matrix and it's happening, and it's like, well, sometimes it's not, because they're troubled with the latest production bug or the latest hot button topic or another project that's coming up. So, thank you.
Closer to the mic.
Closer. All right. So those kind of things are what's key to being able to test and cover. So a lot of the testing talks about coverage. Have you had enough coverage? Do you have your matrix covered in terms of testing, and have you validated all your different functionality on the different environments? So
I'm just going to tell you guys right now, if you hear what sounds like a slap happen in the studio, that's going to be me and my hand, and that's going to be Bob's face. I want to let that out there right now, just so you're prepared for it when it happens.
I didn't do nothing. No, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I kind of joke about all this stuff just because I am non-technical. But for the most part, this is probably one of the most important things going on in town. If you talk to
Mobile dev, yeah.
No, not just that, just software development. Because every single recruiter we have is
they're begging for people.
Dying.
They're screaming for people.
No, I'm being dead honest. So I mean, when it's just the whole software community is in a rut right now, and people are dying for talent. So getting this out there and talking about it, and there's the need. If you're not, if you want a job, go into software or healthcare right now in this town.
Well, and the flip side of that is, and it's something you kind of touched on a minute ago, where so we were talking with Erica and Michelle from Girl Develop It, and we were talking about the whole Grand Circus thing. And, but then on the flip side, we're talking to, the folks at Quicken Loans and some of the other places. And what we hear from both sides is that there's a huge disconnect. You have all these grassroots organizations out there that are trying to train devs and trying to get them up and running. And that's great. But what they're doing out of necessity more than anything else is they're training them on open source platforms. Whereas you have, the Quickens and the CompuWares and the Galaxies and those guys where they're basically, itching their arms and going through withdrawals looking for, .NET developers, Java developers, that kind of stuff.
Everybody's looking for .NET developers.
Well, and so, to your point, though, earlier, Chris, I mean, the same can be said for QA resources as well. Okay, great, you've got stuff, when we were sitting over at 3rd Street earlier, I got called out, I got a phone call from somebody who said, yeah, you know what, I'm dealing with a situation right now. We launched something in prod, and oops, it didn't get QA'd right. Prod's a mess right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's I had several scenarios where that's all too common, and you need a QA tester who's got experience with those different platforms. And I'm seeing that too. As part of joining the IT and the D and DetroitNet.org, I've talked to lots of recruiters, and I get these emails about, hey, we're hiring for this platform.
Oh, you've been through probably 6 different cycles now so far where it's, oh my God, we're all about QA. Oh my God, yeah, you're going to be perfect, dude.
All of this stuff.
But we want to pay you $30,000 a year.
Yeah. And work in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
Well, what about driving to Chicago
Drive
every
an hour
day?
and a half.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, directly related to that. Why don't you walk us through the path that you took? I mean, at the company you're at, Cengage, if someone's an intro QA person, like, grassroots or coming right out of college and doesn't have much of experience, what are there steps like, junior developer, senior developer, project manager? What are the levels of QA from?
The QA ladder starts at the manual testing. And,
Okay.
I think why the folks in my early career hired me was because as a teacher you checked things, you validated things against other people, and so I checked like checking a test. It was like I was good at technology and able to validate things and got a little further than another person.
So basically, you were like the equivalent of, hey, Dave, you're my brother-in-law, and computers. Can you fix my laptop?
Sometimes it happened that I was good at Microsoft Word and Excel and PowerPoint, and I knew them cold. And when somebody gave me a quiz to test my knowledge of those, I scored very well. And they said, "Oh, you know that really well. You can test software."
I'm a word perfect expert. Hire me.
There you go.
You took the MCSE, the must call someone else exam.
You still use ClearanceWorks.
Exactly.
So to continue from Jeff's story, so from a teacher,
It's so cute how he tries to stay on track. I enjoy that about him so
Somebody has to, for crying out loud. This is like a train wreck.
I can't help you here, man.
Our two listeners are probably rolling their eyes right now.
I'm still thinking about that squirrel on the roof at 3rd Street. I'm like, what squirrels?
You just wish you had your 22 in your car.
Absolutely.
Squirrel in the developer world is equivalent to giant diversion. It's kind of like the Up movie. You remember that guy?
Of course.
They'd yell, "Squirrel!" and the dog go, "Shoot!" Anyway, so we have squirrels in our development world that end up as bugs or production issues that you end up running down a rabbit hole for. But I digress. So the testing progression, nowadays I think the skills are really more, you need to be a programmer, a generalized specialist. You're not an expert at every one thing, but you know a little bit about a lot of things. And that's because the demands on the tester are so strong nowadays. You need to be investigating how to comb Apache logs. You need to know how to query a database to look for a particular piece of data. You need to know how to navigate through your application functionality and features in order to get to that one condition that causes the bug that they're experiencing, that is money related or account related or grade related, or where the business meets the rubber on the road is where.
Okay, well, looking back, your education is education, right? It's not IT, so are there training paths that learn those skills, or is it all self-taught? Is it something that you learn?
What
along
has
the way?
to happen to you along the way to become a QA person?
Right.
I was dropped as a child.
Exactly. In order to put the hyphen in anal retentive, what do you have to do?
How many paint chips did you actually eat? That at least got a chuckle out of Bob. He's awake over there.
I can't tell if Hillary's shaking her head with laughter or shaking her head with "I am so going to kill you guys."
She's reading the Twitter stream, rolling her eyes.
Yeah.
In being a teacher, I was always self-taught, and I needed to learn something different. And so part of another highly valuable quality of a tester is somebody who can learn, somebody who has the ability to learn and pick up something and say, I can take this and dig into it and learn the nth degree. And both from learning that as a tester, but also in the ability to be able to take that knowledge and teach somebody else that stuff. When you find yourself teaching somebody else something, that's when you start learning more because you become the expert in that. And so that's how I kind of got on that path. And so when I interview people and talk to folks about becoming a tester, it's like, what's your ability to learn? Are you going to sit there and throw something over the wall and say, not my job? Or are you going to be able to follow that path or problem or task through until the end and finish it off?
But that's what I'm getting at. So there is no school curriculum that is specifically QA. It's more problem solving. It's developed. I mean, Hillary, chime in. I
was going to say, because I want to jump over to Hillary here, because I know her school of thought is, how can I break something?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right. So
and she actually has a comp sci degree.
I have a bachelor's of computer science,
right.
And I had no classes, no mention.
They're all coding classes.
Of testing.
I was taught COBOL, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm much younger than you, Jeff.
Somebody say Fortran?
Wow.
Yes.
But it was all coding and database administration, and so like my first job, I was a web mistress, quote unquote.
Ooh.
It was a small company.
You will code it this way.
It was a small company. It was PHP.
Did you have handcuffs?
Thank you. May I have another?
I never should have said that.
S&M. Anyway, go ahead.
So I actually got my first QA job before I even had my associates of programming. So just wanting to learn, wanting to break shit. I wanted to program, but I wasn't confident enough. And then I started testing, and I loved the hell out of it because it was solving problems and breaking shit and throwing shit in people like Bob's faces.
On that note,
which we're all in favor of,
we're going to come up on the 9:30 break. You are listening to the IT and the D show here at Raw Radio X. See you in a couple minutes.
We'll be right back.
When does this happen in the movie? Now. You're looking at now, sir. Everything that happens now is happening now. What happened then? Past then. When? Just now. We're at now. Go back to then. When? Now. Now? Now. I can't. Why? We missed it. When? Just now. When will then be now? Soon. How soon? Go that way. Really fast.
The IT and the D show, episode number 5. Something strikes back. Phone numbers if you guys want to call in 313-462-0107.
Well, and I totally just found out that I got played like I just played my daughter with the whole take the training wheels off the bike. Oh yeah, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to let you go, and you're going to be riding without training wheels. Meanwhile, I'm holding on the entire time. Yeah, the person that usually runs the board is sitting right out in the hallway. So yeah,
laughing hysterically.
Completely laughing and cackling at us.
Oh, we hate you
time.
now.
Yeah.
You can also hit us up on Twitter at hashtag whatever you want, IT in the D.
Yeah, not whatever you want.
Hashtag whatever you want. No, it's at IT in the D or at DetroitNet.
Or, yeah, just at IT in the D. They don't need to use a hashtag.
Yeah.
They can just...
That was last episode with Billy.
Because we own the Twitter handle. That's how that works.
You do it at or at hashtag. Or, sorry, I'll stop talking.
I'm sorry, at hashtag schwa q
.net
ftp : dot / yeah, bang, bang, ding, dang, wallow, living, bang.
The topic of this show...
If you haven't figured it out yet, we should have QA'd this before going on the air.
Yeah, no doubt.
She's nodding her head over there.
Since we deal with the recruiters and all the new jobs coming up in the software field, software testing is just as important, and it kind of doesn't shed a great light. So we wanted to kind of. We thought it'd be a good idea to bring in a couple QA people from the field just to talk about how they got in.
We did. Bob, tell us how in favor of that idea
it was an idea. I don't know if it was a good idea.
For the record, this show is not QA approved.
Nice.
No, as soon as
we're testing in production right now.
Not true, because iTunes approved us.
Well, there you go.
As soon as Dave said,
they have
hey,
no idea what they're doing.
As soon as Dave said, "Hey, let's have a QA show," this is my response was, But in all honesty, I didn't. Part of it was my ignorance. I didn't know anything about it, but now I'm learning about it, and it makes a lot more sense.
And yet again, Bob's heart grew 3 sizes that day. It seems like we have one of those every episode.
Bob, to go with that, the role of a tester is really like to act like the user before they get it, so that they don't have a bad experience.
See, I always thought it was like, for me, it was like laundry in high school. I threw it down the steps, and magically they appeared in my room clean 3 days later.
You are every developer I hate.
Wow, so QA is your mom?
Pretty much. No, software. It's like
Hillary's eyes are daggers right now.
No, the whole software principle. It's like, wait.
Wow, nice snort.
Wow.
Snorted on air. Thank you.
It's better than the alternative.
I tell you what, want my software to do. 3 days later, it comes back and it works.
Well, it's because you're a sales guy. That's how it works in your world.
Exactly. Fix it, engineers. Come back when it's done.
So QA takes that hit first and figures out what's wrong and why, and tries to give the developer and the project team a good feedback level as to what's wrong and how to fix it.
As a novice, though, who are you the go-between between production team and...
Do you talk to the engineer?
He's got people skills.
Yes, exactly.
I'm genuinely curious and from a novice, I'm sure there's people listening that have no idea about software development like me.
Well, and so baby
what does
steps.
QA stand
QA
for?
is
quality assurance or checking and validation. Does the feature that's requested by the business person or the user match the functionality of the application?
Did you get that out of a book?
No, that's my definition.
Oh, okay.
If it matches, cool.
It lives
if not,
in our hearts
it
and
fails.
brains.
Bob, to your point, here's a couple of quick jokes. Okay, these are corny and whatever, but I'll circle it back around to a point. First joke: how many developers does it take to change a light bulb?
Okay, developers. How many light bulb? Yeah. Okay, shoot.
How many developers does it take a light bulb? None. That's a hardware problem.
Exactly.
Okay.
I would go with that.
Second joke goes: how many QAs does it take to change a light bulb?
I'm going to go with 47.
None. We just tell people it's dark.
Nice.
Nice timing.
So, the point of those, though, is that the stereotypes of both developers and QA gets shoehorned into a persona. And those are not the personas that we want to encourage in the IT development world. You want developers who are willing to help and test also. You want a QA person who's willing to help the developer see the different types of test scenarios as they develop their feature. Hey, developer, did you think about a score of over 100%? How is your code going to handle that?
We want to work with dev from day one.
Well, and especially in your world, because you're dealing with financial applications.
Oh yeah, the money is very important.
And
any money transactions.
That's a real tight world. I deal
Details.
with it. Yeah. Well, and you start getting into it. It's not just a hand slap when things go wrong. You're worried about what happens.
Millions of dollars down the drain.
Right.
Yeah.
So what pressure lives in your world to make sure that things go solid?
It's incredibly stressful, especially when we get the treatment
from both sides.
From both sides, what's the value in testing? But if there's no testing, then millions of dollars down the drain.
It's a thankless job, Dave.
It is pretty thankless.
Guys, let me ask you this, right? I'm judged on revenue that I bring in, right? Jeff's judged on, project time to market. What are you judged on? Because if nothing's broken, if the developers do their job and you say, hey, it works.
There's always a bug.
But, what's the cloud hanging over your head every day? There's always a bug. Is that the cloud?
Well, it depends on the environment. I think some are bug metrics. How many bugs did you find in this amount of time?
So you're actually evaluated on that?
In some environments, not in the one I'm currently in.
Yeah, it depends on the company you're at.
Don't you destroy the developer that just did that? Like, wait a minute, what do you she found how many bugs and, what are you doing?
Yeah, that's a double-edged sword, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
Hey, there's bugs in production. Why didn't QA find that? That's a really big, that's the thing hanging over my head every day is I'm responsible for
that's
any
your
issues
crap
that are
moment.
found. Yeah.
But do the developers hate you if you find too many? That's the other end.
No, well, you can get a little too nitpicky.
It depends on the.
You say no, and Hillary's shaking her head yes.
Well, yeah.
Well, it depends on the stage of development.
It's the nitpickiness, though, too. It's like, well, you spelled this wrong. You missed a period. Like some developers will.
Hey, missing a period, that's nothing to be joking about.
Bob's over here rolling right now.
Actually, as Bob's wife is currently expecting, that's nothing to be...
What? So you didn't QA that?
Hey, looks just like his daddy, and if Bob ever catches that son of a...
What was that about the iTunes rating?
The other half of that is, hey, developer,
we lost Hillary.
Why did you put those bugs in the software? Because they're the ones who coded it, right? So I think as we will look at software development in terms of team rather than a waterfall method where it's like there's fingers and there's handoffs and stuff, a development team that's tight-knit, that has quality assurance built in, along with the business analysts who are providing those requirements, when you get that type of team mentality into it, quality assurance and testing is owned by the team, not just by the tester. And I think that's a really important feature of a software development team, so that there's total team ownership on the quality. And nobody can point fingers. It's just team owned.
Because nothing is worse than being, having some code thrown over the wall, literally or figuratively, and get like, well, test it. It's like, test what?
Well, and that's one of the things that, and honestly, I think I've gotten better with over the years as I've kind of grown and matured, through the development and it's okay. I've matured from a professional standpoint, not a personal one. My inner 11-year-old still finds, whatever.
Wow.
I will kill you all. No, so I mean, it's and doing things like building time in to the development timeline to have QA engaged, so that you're not finding. You should find things in the QA environment, not in the UAT environment, and sure as hell not in the prod environment.
We should be involved from step one, from requirements. We can QA the requirements.
I don't know about you, Dave, but I don't always test my code, but when I do, I test it.
That's right. I don't always test my code. Yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean,
stay buggy, my friend.
In some development frameworks, like Ruby on Rails, have that test environment built in right at unit testing. Right
unit
from the
testing,
get-go.
Behavior-driven testing and test-driven development. Those are two big key buzzwords, for lack of a different description. But
hey, for what it's worth, just off the Twitter feed, Eric Davis would like everybody to know that lots and lots of testers do very well without ever having to be a programmer. It is something that you don't. And honestly, it's like networking 101. I mean, it's the same thing that we preach all the time. Developers in their 20s don't necessarily understand the importance of QA. They see them as the enemy, and they see them as
not until they save their ass.
Well, but it's even then, it is what it is. You don't understand the importance of QA, just like you don't understand the importance of networking. But it's something that as you grow and mature in your skill set, you do start to understand. It's almost like when you're a kid and your parents are friggin' morons, and then the older you get, you're like, oh, wow, they weren't dumb. They were looking out for me.
Well, it's also you don't see any 8-year-olds going around going, I want to be a QA tester.
I want to claw my way to middle management.
Well, the QA industry, are you guys ever, when you're day in, day out, QAing stuff and you're finding bug after bug and you're like getting frustrated, it's like, for crying out loud, can't they just code something correctly? Do you ever get depressed? Are you guys like the dentists of the IT industry where you usually no one listens to you? Why can't you just put the semicolon in there? For crying out loud, that's all you need.
Oh no, it's actually quite the opposite.
That's why we need the Mr. Hand. Why are you people on dope?
When I get code like that and it looks like something and I take it and I do one or two things real quick, it's like I look at that code and I think this.
He's finally. So you get the evil laugh. So are you saying you find joy in this?
Yes, it's actually enjoyment. I mean, that's the part of testing, is finding something wrong with something.
So you're kind of like a web mistress?
Protecting the user.
Are you going back to the developer saying, hey, you got to fix your stuff, or are you saying? How are you sugarcoating it? Are you just telling it like it is, or how do you present that?
That's part of the people skills, right? So
I've got people skills.
It's part of the balance between developer and you got business analysts who want this feature, and the developer who is a little bit more focused. And I try to think, I found this. What do you think?
See, Chris is nice like that. Like,
Yeah. Did you actually load this in a browser and see what it did?
I've had those situations.
Well, but I mean, and that's, and that kind of goes along with what I was saying earlier, where it does take some time to realize that you don't have developers test their own code. Well, because
some
they
need to, like a unit test, try and run it once.
Unit test, absolutely.
It's
but
like
I mean,
having a sales guy assign his own quota.
Right. Well, but and that's exactly right, because you know what that button's supposed to do. You know what you know how you coded it to run.
Right,
but it's the well, push that button over there. Well, but I didn't code it to push that button over there.
Sometimes
that's my point.
it's as simple as running it and does it do what I coded it to do, and if it does, pass it to QA. In a previous job, I had a developer tell me that he was keeping me employed.
Okay, that's
he
just
was
wrong.
keeping me in a job.
I mean, it's good for you, but that's just wrong.
That sounds like self-rationalization right there.
Let me
yeah.
ask the stupidest question of the day. Do they ever sneak in bad code just to make sure that you're doing your job? I'm just curious, because if you don't find anything for 3 days and they're, what are you doing all day?
And not only that, I'll get even a little more pointed to that, because I happen to know of a certain financial institution for the longest time, a company where Jeff and I might have both worked together at the same time.
What did it rhyme with?
Schmeisler?
It was initials, and let's just not even go there. But there might have been a financial institution that for the longest time.
There are a bunch of Great Lakes around Michigan.
Yeah, there are. In their credit application, if you put in a certain name and a certain bogus social security number, a picture of a certain developer with a cheese head on might have popped up. So I mean,
Easter eggs.
Exactly.
You're talking about Easter
there are
eggs.
developers that and hey, you know what? I'm not going to lie. I kind of coded one in a corporate website that I worked for once upon a time.
Is that like the Disney artists that sneak in the male genitalia?
Yeah,
Yes, that's exactly right.
mine
I had to
was
explain Easter eggs to you last week.
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't know what they were.
Right.
Yeah, if you go, for a while there, if you went to search on a certain corporate website and you typed in a certain phrase, the all your base are belong to us, SWF would load. So I mean, it's how
what's
do you?
sad though is the millennials won't even know what you're talking about.
They have no idea what all your base is.
Well,
and that's
didn't
just
Google
depressing
Maps
to
at
me.
one point, if you put Detroit to London, it would say go to New York and say swim across.
Swim across the ocean. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So I mean, how do you account for the one? Do you actually? And I guess that's a good question from a QA, because I mean, you've got developers that write code, you have tech leads that go through code reviews, and then you've got we've gone through our unit testing, we hand it off to QA. How much of that falls back on you guys? Like if, for example, some customer stumbles across the fact that there's a picture of a developer and a cheese head in a credit application online.
That goes back to that testing is never done, and you can never. There's always another bug to find. I mean, quite honestly, it's a risk reward system, because business only has so much time and money to pay for a certain amount of testing, and that's where the test planning comes into place. It's like, okay, I got X amount of time to test your application. How long? How much testing do you want, and what kind during that time? Because the business wants, I need this feature, I need it now.
And it's got to be in production yesterday.
Tomorrow, the next day, right?
And if development runs over, testing loses.
Testing loses.
We get
that's the
less
biggest
and
crunch.
less and less and less time to test the same amount. So, developers can toss us the
there
code.
are crunching demands on your time too.
There are. It's amazing. So 5 p.m. we get the code from developers to say, have a good weekend. We need it tested by Monday morning.
So QA basically falls in the same realm as, say, documentation of the code.
Well, yes and no.
After the fact.
Sometimes. I mean, and that's where I start talking about testing as an engineering and a developer function, because in order to be successful as a tester and maximize your time, you need to be able to automate a lot of your testing. In all of the jobs I've ever had as a QA tester, there is no substitute for human eyes. And I am not promoting that test automation is the end-all be-all of everything. It isn't. You still need a pair of human eyes.
Because that's how Skynet is born.
That's right.
You need somebody to touch and feel the application and make sure that it works according to the spec, the requirement, whatever. But I still test according to Rational Man 3. I'm Forrest Gump. How do I expect...
Stupid is as stupid does?
How do I expect it to work as a reasonable person?
I was waiting for something with shrimp involved. Well, and again, actually, back at that same company, that the sad part is that we actually, not we, I will own this one. It was I actually managed to get into a statement of work.
First step.
That we exactly admit that there's a problem. Actually did wind up putting into a statement of work with a fairly large 3-initial company that we would provide an average 6-year-old for testing purposes because things were just pathetic as they were at the time.
Yeah, you got to keep it simple. I mean, at that point, because you're going to understand it, like, I'm going to put this data in, and I expect it to work this way because the app flows that, and if I have blue on page 3, I should have blue on page 4. Why is it red? You know, what's
I wanted
the difference?
Duck to be red.
And maybe you did, but it's not consistent.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm just going to go ahead and turn your mic off, Bob. Are we good with that? No, and I mean, so I guess that is, the overwhelming issue, and it is. I mean, there's a time crunch on developers. There's a time crunch on, everybody kicking through this stuff. So, I mean, is that, again, just talking about, the life of a QA, if there's anybody out there that's listening that's thinking, hey, I want to be a QA person, and may God have mercy on your soul if you do, but I mean, is that, is the life of a QA person / lead / whatever, is it, yeah, you're going to be doing a lot of late nights and weekends, and is there a trade-off for it? Like, do you get to balance that out by not coming in till, maybe, 10, 11 o'clock in the morning because you were doing things till 4 or 5 in the morning the day before?
A lot of that probably relies on the project manager, right?
On the company itself, too. Like the previous company I was at.
It's culture. It's all culture.
Yeah, it's culture. No matter how many hours I worked, I was still in there at the same time and left well beyond anyone else, but I always had to be in at a certain time. The company I'm at now, I have to be on production pushes 1 night a week or 2 nights a week, depending, and I can come in a little bit later, which is great.
Or sometimes they're early in the morning, so it depends on your company and
right. It depends on the company,
requirements.
depends on the product.
Said, I want to be in. Oh, never mind.
Are you still talking?
I am still talking.
But it can be super thankless. It can be super stressful.
How much downtime does a QA person have?
Your mic's off, just so you know.
In a typical project lifecycle, I mean, is it? I mean, I like you're talking about company culture, and I mentioned a good project manager. What's a worst case scenario? Like, would you guys be sitting there twiddling your thumbs, and then at the last minute, be slammed? Like a developer has a death march, for example.
If you're on a greenfield project, that's the only project you're on. And worst case scenario, you're doing nothing until, like, in Waterfall kind of thing.
Right.
You're doing nothing until the last, 2 weeks.
And that's something where...
That's horrible.
That's horrible.
That's nightmare scenario.
I don't think you're doing nothing. You're constantly, if you're not testing and your environment's broken, you're doing documentation.
So we got an interesting quote on Facebook and, from Roger. He basically said, bad business analysts are the real problem. Bit of a dumping ground for low performers.
Oh, there's a concept.
Where's Mr. Haas when we need him to call in on that one? Interesting.
Front loading. So sometimes you need some good requirements in order to make sure that, hey, if I want the application to perform like this, how do I validate that? And then the QA has to balance the conversation and the discussion to, well, the business analyst said this. What does that really mean? And the developer goes, well, I got these requirements, and I thought it meant that. And now you're testing to this other thing over here.
Nothing bad ever comes of interpretation.
And that's the wonderful world about Agile, because Agile does not require all that documentation so much, but it relies on those conversations so that people understand it. It also requires people to be a little bit more close-knit and have good people skills. And that's why shops with Agile development are able to move a little quicker and get those functionality into the application.
Yeah, but people skills in the IT world, really?
Yeah, what? I thought developers wore blinders. You ever see those big black glasses with the sides on? They're always focused.
In large companies can be Agile as well. I mean, are the teams you're on, Hillary, are they
they're starting
like
to become more agile. But I wanted to say, to the previous point, my boyfriend says, depends on how masochistic the QA is. I'm a 60-hour-a-week kind of person, regardless of the environment. But, yeah, they are.
So basically you bring this all on yourself, is what he's saying.
Yeah, you're a glutton for punishment.
I'm an overachiever. But
ain't nobody got time for that.
Yeah, no one really does. It is getting more agile. They're kind of understanding that agile is kind of the way to go. Waterfall is
All right.
Horrible.
You know what? I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and take a break there for a minute because we can take a stop there, come back, and dive into the whole Waterfall versus Agile, and then I absolutely want to talk about some of the worst case scenarios and funniest crap that you guys have ever seen come your way. So that's going to be it. And Bob, I swear to God, if you're about to play crickets, I'm turning your mic off again.
No, just say you're listening to IT and the D, Raw Radio X.
We'll be right back.
We decided to make it female so that it would be more docile and controllable.
More docile and controllable, huh? Well, I guess you guys don't get out much.
I went to a party last Saturday night. I didn't get laid. I got in a fight. It ain't no big thing. Late for my job and the traffic was bad. Had to borrow $10 from my old man. It ain't no big thing.
IT and the D, Raw Radio X, episode 5. We're going to call this the Software Testers Strike Back. We got
something QA.
We got Chris and Hillary.
Something quality.
We got Chris and Hillary on stage. We've had some interesting Facebook chats coming in, some interesting tweets, some interesting texts, just talking about, the business analyst's fault, and the business analyst chimes in that what the question mark.
So, all right. So, like I said, I mean, one of the things I wanted to, we wanted to get back into, it was a good stopping point, was the whole, people may not understand Waterfall versus Agile. And so Waterfall, I guess for a layman's perspective, is you code and you code and you code, and then you push stuff over the waterfall, and it falls down into everyone else's lap.
No.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas, Agile is much more iterative, which is, wow, and I'm really impressed I said that right.
Nice. Say that 5 times fast.
I don't want to. You're not the boss of me. So it goes at, you've got more interaction between the dev team and the QA and everybody else all along the path, and it actually does work really well. But so many people are afraid to adopt it. It's just one of those things where you can't seem to break the cycle of pain with Waterfall, where there have to be these silos and these giant walls between all the different departments. How do you get past that?
Well, Waterfall was modeled after the whole assembly line methodology from the auto
I'm sorry,
workers.
Bob's trying to be funny, and I accidentally left his mic on. What were you saying, Bob?
I didn't say it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Chris. You've got the floor.
Waterfall goes along with the assembly line methodology and handing it off and passing it down. And the Agile works more with the team methodology. And the team stuff goes, again, with everybody owns it. No one person is responsible. So there's different skills that go with
Wait, so there's no finger pointing in Agile? There will be no Agile.
It's software development. There's always finger pointing.
Well, if you have the right team set up, then it works. There's
you don't
team ownership.
have to, but you might want to.
But you still can.
But you might want to. So the team ownership both over the code, the quality, and running of it in production as well. So it's not just throw it over the wall, hand it to system administration, and let them take it from there.
Mute your phone.
Hey, we're watching production every day. We're watching the counters. We're looking at our monitors. We're making sure that the error messages are low. We're looking at everything. So it's QA and development and system operations all within the same team. And it works because you can solve problems a lot faster. You can pinpoint areas where you're weak and slow, and you can get the fixes in for those very quickly.
So, Hillary, I see you nodding your head. Anything you want to add there?
Just the rattling of my head nodding. Yes, I agree.
Nice. Wow, we got really two great, very overly talkative people in studio with us. That was a great decision.
And that's episode 5. Thanks, Hillary.
I'm relatively new to the Agile methodology. I've been involved in Waterfall since I started.
And we all have. Yeah, I mean, it never goes away.
No.
Right.
It's like big iron. I mean, mainframes are never going to go away.
I guess that depends on which place you work at, right? So, like you're a slow auto working company or a bank, they have those big iron places, which are really hard to get into, and you got to.
You really think big iron's not going away?
Whole lot of transforms.
Big iron's never going to go away, and it's one of the it's the you look at the difference between a Kmart and a Walmart. So, Kmart had so much legacy data and legacy systems and legacy everything sitting in Big Iron, and yet you had Walmart that hopped on the scene. When they came into being, relational databases were there, and waiting for them and in production, and life was good. They didn't have to deal with any of that nonsense. So, I mean, as long as you've still got, companies that are, even today, 30, 40, 50 years old, yeah. I mean, and Jeff and I actually worked at a company, another company together where, their entire intent was when they brought us in was, hey, we're gonna change everything, and we're gonna get off Big Iron, and we're gonna get off the mainframe, and we're gonna change the world, and that's the way it's gonna be. And after 9 months, it turned into, you know what, this is too hard. We're not gonna do that. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna stick with the way we had things.
I still see people buying tape drives every day. It's like,
yeah.
Those haven't gone away.
Yeah,
Well,
corporations are still using applications that came out in 2001.
It's a business decision, right? They made a choice at some point in time, and that's the technology they stuck with.
Mm-hmm.
They see this in almost every shop. Somebody at some point made a decision. This is the technology, this is the platform, this is the coding language, and this is what we're doing.
They have to outlay the budget to justify upgrading that software or that hardware environment to upgrade whatever it is that needs to be fixed. I mean, the risk they're running now is that these corporations are running unsupported software now.
Yep.
And in your world, that's got to make you pull your hair out.
Oh yeah, because it's old and it doesn't work, or it's got it breaks often. You got to restart the servers every other week.
And who
or
do you
whatever.
call? Don't say
Ghostbusters.
Don't say that, ladies and gentlemen, is what you call low-hanging fruit.
See, I mean, like I wasn't going to say it. Come on. You said crossing the streams.
Clearly, we're crossing the streams tonight.
No, so I mean, it is. I mean, and it's never. You're never going to have an ideal situation, and I mean, and I guess that's the same part of the challenge the developers face that that QA gets hit with, where you don't know always what you're walking into from an environment standpoint. I mean, and that's one of the things we tell people all the time. Where awesome, I'm really glad that you can and this kind of gets back to the the conversation with Girl Develop It and Grand Circus and Quicken and CompuWare. Where, okay, awesome, you can do everything you want to do with an Apache server and PHP and MySQL, and life's great. We're
hey,
.NET
C#?
shop.
Yeah,
and that's just it is what it is. So I mean, I guess from a QA perspective, how do you bridge that gap internally? And I guess the other question that because we got to talking about metrics and operations and that kind of stuff. Where and why are you involved after the fact? Like after the launch goes down, what's your world?
After the launch goes down, typically resolves in doing production monitoring and validation of existing bugs. If somebody says, hey, this is broken in production, then we go back through the different environments and make sure and see if it was valid in the lower environments as well. So you're checking out, does this feature work there or not? It's just a continuous iterative process in order to validate that new feature X is now working in the system.
Cool. So, and I guess that was one of the other things I wanted to dive into. So I guess, without, let's not name names, let's not name companies, because let's keep it clean and above board. And let's not get the happy, shiny DetroitNet guys sued. So, what's the dumbest thing that's come your way? I mean, what have you had to deal with?
All right, so I was working on a small Agile team, and we were building an application. And these were back in the day, it was CD-ROMs. So the CD-ROM would come to me from developer A, and it would be green and shiny and have this interface, and it would look all the same. And then I'd get it from developer C, and it would look green and shiny and look all the same. Everybody used the same template. Developer B used something different, and we were sitting right next to each other, and he's programming, and he's showing me all this cool stuff. He's like, oh, look at this interface, and it's going to lose shiny things and spin around and do all this stuff. And I leaned over him one day, and I said, I'm going to fail that.
Because it didn't come on the right CD.
And he's just like, what? You're stifling my creativity. You're being so difficult. Why are you nitpicking me and stuff? And I just says, it's not standard. It doesn't follow the standard. And as much as I appreciated his creative thoughts and stuff, I was focused on what are the standards, what's the requirements, how should it look, and does it follow the same pattern?
Well, and for what it's worth, I mean, you're not alone there. I mean, that's as a growing up over the course of my career, tech lead, architect, and all that fun stuff, there's not, and Jeff's been around for some of these conversations too, every developer, especially the good ones, really, really wants to be Neo and really, really wants to write the elegant code. Like they want, the ultimate solution, and I guess that's the flip side, so we talk about, code getting thrown at you guys at 5:00 at night and, hey, have a nice weekend. At what point do you guys start harping on the devs from the back end and saying, okay, look, seriously, it is what it is, drop it off and let's go? Because, from, like I said, from a tech lead or arc perspective, it gets to be a pain where you're dealing with developers that, you know what, I know if I just take like 20 more minutes or 2 more hours or whatever, I can optimize this one routine and it's going to be solid and it's going to be awesome and it's going to change the way the company runs.
That's great. I'll be able to have your application tested in 2 days.
So you're saying it makes no difference,
right? Yeah, it's X plus 48 hours. Yeah. Wherever you decide X is.
Right. Yeah.
The regression tests take 2 days to run, and I got to look at it in XYZ environment, and I got to run all these manual scenarios. It's going to take 2 days.
So it doesn't matter if code is poetry. If it looks great, it's equally spaced out, and it's easy to read. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm at the user perspective at that point, saying, how does a reasonable person expect
You don't even
work?
look at the code, do you? Unless there's a problem?
Correct.
Yeah.
In most cases, I'm not looking at code. I'm just looking at functionality. I dig through code when I want to watch a stack trace and see if the data is getting flowed through and where it's going and what it's getting transformed to, and if there's a problem. And then that helps me develop rapport with the developer when I want to say, here's the bug, here's what's happening, here's all the detail with it, and here's how I think you should fix it. That goes a long way with building rapport with the developer rather than it's broke, you fix it.
Anything you want to dive in there with?
Just as far as looking at the code or being able to see the code.
Right.
In some environments, it's very closed, very black box. We're testing.
Oh, you wouldn't even have access to it?
Depending on the environment. One environment I was in, we could see half of the code, maybe. And if you knew...
So you could get half the bugs.
Right. You could find them before they actually ran. You could see the bugs in the comments of the code, which is great.
Oh, comments! I love looking at developer comments. That's one of my favorite things.
Bob, these are called Easter eggs.
No,
Well, and it's one of those things where we talked about this a couple weeks ago, where we actually started. Yeah, your mic's off, just so we're clear.
He was actually sleeping.
I figured nobody needed to hear you snoring. No, but that's how GE wound up coming to our events. Is we were at one of our events at the Blackfin, and there was this table full of 5 people. We had no idea who the hell they were. Walked over, introduced myself, and it turned out it was their director of recruiting, and said, one of our tech leads came to HR and said, our developers are tagging their code with DetroitNet.org. So we thought we should probably come see who you were. So kind of the night we were like the code version of graffiti. I was really happy. That's why I told Bob, I'm like, Bob, you will never understand this, but this is such an awesome geek moment right now.
I still don't understand it.
So I guess I'm talking more of the comments where it's I can't figure this out right now, so I'm just going to throw in this hack job thing that's probably not going to work anyway. Like that has been in comments.
Warning, break out the ragu, here is some spaghetti code coming up.
Or copied and pasted from Google. And then there was a test.
Hey, that's what code archives are for, isn't it?
That's what Google's for.
My favorite comment that I ever found in code by a developer that you and I know, Hillary, and it said, the marketing monkey runs around and throws poop. And that was classic.
Well, was that me that wrote that? Because that sounds like something I might write.
At a previous job, I got a test suite that I had to maintain, which is all VB script, and it was maintained or created by the German team, and then thrown over the wall.
Yeah, is it German?
Literally does, yes. And some
as
of the
Bob puts on his lederhosen.
I got nothing.
Bob, by the way, Sean says you look peaceful sleeping against the microphone.
I was. I got like 30 seconds of good sleep.
It's like being at your funeral. He looks so natural.
I know a couple of Polish developers who have done the same thing where they write out all their comments and stuff in the code, and it was Polish.
The one was it was in German, and then there were some comments that were just blah blah blah, literally the words blah blah blah.
Wow, that's some awesome documentation.
Biz Marquis'
right there.
girlfriend.
It's amazing.
Exactly. Do you know blah blah blah?
Girl named blah 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 that endorsed me. Sorry.
We've got we've talked Waterfall, we've talked Agile. I guess what knowing what you guys know about the QA field and dealing with what you deal with, I mean, is it, because I mean, we do. I mean, the three of us get hit up all the time. You know, I know that I want to be in IT. I don't know how, when, or why. And we're seeing, you know, as we do more with like shifting gears and shifting code, Lawrence Tech and some of the other speaking stuff that we do. What does I guess let's start with A, should one get into QA, and B,
and two,
and then 4, and schwa. You know, what should someone be interested in or get engaged with or start to take a look at if that's what they, you know, if they know that there's a hyphen in the word anal retentive, what should they be doing?
If it's somebody who likes solving problems and looking into puzzles. So I ran into a tester guy who was really good at Visual Basic Programming and QuickTest Pro, and he enjoyed it. And he's like, I love it. It's like working on puzzles all day. He gets to solve these little things, and that's what drove him. Other people get hung up on trying to find that Easter egg and trying to do the fringe testing. So, you know, in testing we have all this stuff called happy path, right? That's the reasonable person's expectation as to how the application should work. If I give it this data, it's going to give me this. It's going to take me to page 4. I'm going to get a thank you. I'm all set. But what about...
And your job is to find the cranky path?
Yeah, to find the bad path. If I give it bad data, does it accurately handle it? Or does it just say, thank you very much, and munch it down and goes off into the ether or whatever?
Or the chaos monkey testing, which is what actually Netflix did to save itself from the Amazon outages that Dave and I were at the Cloud Dev Day, and that was amusing as hell.
I was so mad he never answered my question.
Dave calls him out. So what about this outage?
Well, yeah, so I mean, we were at Dev Day.
All your stuff is in the cloud. Why doesn't it work?
Yeah, well, no, we were at Dev Day. It was last year. You know, and the guy that was in charge of Amazon Web Services was there. And I'm looking around the room. I'm like, seriously? This guy is giving the talk, and he's from Amazon Web Services, and this was right...
when Netflix was down.
Literally right after the whole, 5-day outage, you know, when, half the internet was down because everybody put their faith in them. And I'm like, seriously? Nobody's going to ask the question? Okay, I'm going to ask the question. Hi,
what's a Nubian?
Yeah, excuse me, what's a Nubian? Yeah.
But the reason that Netflix was able to kind of recover faster or not be as affected by that is because they had this chaos monkey thing, which is, you know, pulling the plug, how to recover after that.
Just kidding.
Well, and DR, DR is important. I mean, disaster recovery is something that everybody should be planning for, you know, and some
nobody does.
You know what, I do, but I mean, it's one of those things where you get into the whole possibility versus probability. And I've had this discussion with our folks before, you know, from an infrastructure and security and all that fun stuff. You know, yeah. So, you know what, my data centers are in Chicago and LA. That's where my stuff is hosted in prod. Is it possible that something is going to happen that's going to take out both Chicago and by the way, we picked Chicago and LA and not Chicago, New York, because back in 2003 when we had the big old power outage, that took out Chicago East. So let's go Chicago, LA. Yeah, there's something that might take out both Chicago and LA, but is that probable?
You've got bigger problems.
And if it does happen, there are bigger issues than
Well, HP used to play a video all the time of a server getting shot with a 30-06 to find out how fast it would come up to the other server, and it's like, yeah, when is someone going to shoot, you know, in the real world?
Really mad. There's a lot of developers that would love to shoot a server with a 30-06.
I would like to, actually.
Yeah, Chris, you were actually showing us a picture of one of your testing hard drives that has a bullet hole in it, right?
There you go. Good testing award. That was the
hey,
fail
you know what?
drive.
There's your revenue model for the German American Gun Club, by the way, is you get servers, old desktops and servers and hard drives, and you rent the shooting gallery out to geeks that want to blow away hardware.
The Office Space printer.
Yeah, their Office.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Instead of a baseball bat, just take a 12 gauge.
Right.
PC load letter. But it's like this whole idea that a user wouldn't do that drives me insane when a developer says that. Like, I put in a bug that, you know, this happens when I do this, and they say, well, a user wouldn't do that. It's like, how do you know?
If a user can do it, they will.
Never rely on the intelligence of
idiots
users.
out there.
Ever.
It's either they're idiots or they fell asleep on the keyboard.
Nobody ever does that. No, there's no hackers in the world. Come on.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's, you know, I actually had a whole conversation just actually last week with people that were, you know, questioning, you know, why don't we allow certain kinds of characters as valid characters for passwords? And it was the whole conversation.
Nice.
Well, okay, you know, it's there are certain characters that are used in SQL injection attacks and that kind of stuff. And so instead of just limiting it to, there are these 8 characters that we don't allow, we just ban that entire character set and we're done with it.
Is it like little Bobby tables?
Yeah, I mean it's because I mean it's
well, entire infrastructure is like that too. Like out at Chrysler,
no, not even close.
Out at Chrysler, they'll refuse to run the lamp stack because they don't have proper environments to set up to test for those to make sure that they're secured properly and tested properly for certain environments. They're a Java house. They've got certain programs and they run a certain way with their development and testing processes. And when you want to run a one-off application that's on a open source type of stack like that, like the Linux Apache stack, they're just simply not going to allow it because they don't want to have that in their environment. They don't want to have that variable because it's untested in their world, even though it is tested elsewhere. But in their particular little bubble of the universe.
Well, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, that's one of the challenges that I went through in my world, where a few years back, when I decided I was going to take our production website off of the IBM stack and the IBM platform and go to an open source platform, I got fought tooth and nail by anybody and everybody in the food chain that it was, I was going to put it on stuff that somebody codes in their garage, and it was, and all this, that, and the other thing. And no,
people don't understand open source.
Well, and there's 2 different versions. I mean, we talked about this last week a little bit, where you've got the open source, where it can be stuff that people code in their garage, and then you have the commercially supported open source, where it's perfectly acceptable to run an app in prod on Red Hat Enterprise Linux. You can use it on the commercially supported version of MySQL.
Doesn't CBS Local run WordPress?
Yeah. Silence.
His mic is still on, Dave. Turn his mic off.
When he notices I have to turn it on for a few minutes, and then I turn it back off.
Thank God there's not a webcam in here.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean that's one of the challenges that happens, where whether it's a big environment, a big company that's not familiar with an environment, and that's and that is again, getting back to the challenge that we deal with the Girl Develop It's and the Grand Circuses of the world, where they're training all these people on the open source platform, and a lot of the small, nimble startups. I mean, that's great, and that's what they use out of necessity, and that's really the argument for me came down to, okay, if you're really insistent that we're going to run on this other platform, who's going to pony up the $4 million a year in licensing and support fees? It is what it is, and it's unfortunate, and I do understand why a lot of companies haven't caught on to it and don't do it, because it can be a pain point. But the important thing is making sure that you have the people that can support it, not just say, hey, we're going to save all this money by doing it.
Well, right. I mean, I'm constantly surprised that when we talk to recruiters and they say, the hot language right now is .NET, everything Microsoft or everything, hardcore Java. And there are the small, nimble companies that are doing PHP development or Ruby on Rails development, but those shops are so small. You don't hear about larger companies like Quicken using Ruby on Rails to develop an application that even though it's perfectly capable of it. You hear companies that want these tried and true application frameworks that have that test environment built into it, right?
However, for someone that doesn't have any previous experience in development, open source projects are the way to go. Things like GiveCamp are the way to go, because if you want to put a project on your resume and not be a total liar about it, which we've talked about
that never happens.
Never. Open source projects, GiveCamp, things like that, where you can contribute to the community. You're still learning and involving yourself in software development life cycles.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask about earlier. Like when we were talking about the waterfall thing, and we were joking about having nothing to do and twiddling your thumbs, waiting for the developer to throw it over the waterfall for you guys to test. I mean, are there things that you guys can do in your quote unquote downtime to sharpen your saw? To keep up with the craft, like Chris, you were telling me on the way down here that you just learned how to do Java programming. I mean, that you would never in a million years say that 3 years ago that you were going to be a Java developer. I mean, I wouldn't say that. I mean, but it's just unreal.
Right. It was out of necessity. In order to get better as a tester, I needed to learn how to write software tests that validated the Java application. And in my world of testing web services and some analytical data, I needed to be able to very accurately and pinpoint some of the functionality of the services. So
we just had an interesting tweet come across. I just want to throw this out. Mike Dennis was talking about, we had an Access 97 app people were using even up until a couple years ago. It's like, how do you even get, I guess it's a good point is, how old or at what point do you stop?
Back away slowly from access.
Well, I mean, as a web developer, you have to go 2 or 3 browser versions back to make sure it's compatible.
I would think more, no?
No, really. I mean, when you look at the percentage of
Remember
browser...
that matrix I was talking about a little earlier?
Yeah.
That's where you say you get A grade browser experience is this browser, this version, and this many flavors. And then B browser experience is these versions, and you might see slower performance, you might see lack of flash, you might see lack of something else, and then you get C and unsupported. And so it's the job of any good IT shop to keep up with the browsers as they come out and as they go up to another version to make sure that their browsing experience for their user base is as high as it can be. And the reason that's such a hard target is because the browsers increase their versions on a regular basis and so quickly that it's just hard to keep up with it.
Yeah, we've
And you
got
can't test
IE 11
everything.
coming out soon.
Yeah, Firefox is on Firefox version 22. For crying out loud.
Oh, really?
22.
I was about to say, aren't they on like 24 now?
I think there's a movie coming out called Rocky 5.
Thousand, yeah. All right, well, I'll tell you what, that's a good stop point while we mock each other into submission here for a minute. Bob, you want to do your thing, please?
No.
Okay. So this is the
this is the IT&D show. We'll be right back.
See ya.
You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Sewer and the Kodan Armada.
So hard finding inspiration. I knew you'd find me crying. Tell those girls with
pictures earlier, and one of these ones was these hard drives that I broke on purpose. And so these
By the way, we're back.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So these hard drives.
But again, go ahead and make the show all about you.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. And you realize there's no webcam in here, but go ahead, show your picture.
All right, so these pictures, I have some hard drives, a couple of team awards that I use in order to build, that camaraderie, those people skills we were talking about earlier. I mean, that's really big in Agile and working with your development team.
How about put the picture on Twitter so everyone else can see?
Yeah, here. Let's take a picture of your picture.
Let's take a picture of the picture. And
get it up.
Wow, this is the best radio segment
We
ever.
have
is what
the
we have right now.
technology.
Yeah, how meta is this?
Oh, God.
All right.
A picture of a
moving
photo
it for
on an
Okay.
iPad with an iPhone? Really?
It's just the iDrone's wet dream.
Yeah. Dave is exploding right now, taking a picture of an iPad with an iPhone. But continue your awesome story.
I could have
Chris.
said it.
Yeah.
I could have set it up. So I have these hard drives. One I decorated with gold paint, and I put all this bling and stars and shiny stuff around it. And that's the Code Wizard Award. And the Code Wizard Award goes to the person who has done something cool that day or that week, and it's passed around from team member to team member. And the second hard drive is the fail drive. It was a drive that I put a 9mm bullet in order to,
Fantastic.
make sure that the data.
Did
could
anyone
not
search Chris before we got in here? That
Well, we
actually
are in
just
Detroit
dawned on
after
me.
all.
Right? Yeah.
I've shot guns with Chris. It's all right.
The data cannot be recovered, which was the
I
whole,
hear you beat him,
whole
too.
point.
Almost.
But the fail drive is the award that you take. It's kind of on your honor system. So if you break the build or you screw up a feature or you put a bug in there, that's the drive that you take and you say, yeah, I screwed up something on production or in the code, and I learned something from it, and here's what I learned, and here's how you too, other developer, QA tester, whatever, can prevent it in the future. So it's just kind of a way to build
It's
that
a
camaraderie.
teaching moment.
Yeah, for everybody, and it just passes around.
So we're back. IT and the D, Raw Radio X.
So patient and good, Bob. And we are. I mean, so the pick is out there at the @IT and the D Twitter handle. Feel free to check it out. Chris's little handiwork out there.
Software Tester Strike Back. Are we calling it officially now episode 5?
I'm still going with something strikes back.
Fine. I can live with that.
So I guess where do we want to take this last segment of the show, folks? I mean, we've talked Waterfall, we've talked Agile, we've talked horror stories, we've talked taking a job in downtown. Actually, you know what? Here's a good question from a downtown Detroit job perspective. Are you getting slapped with city taxes? Because, I mean, that's something that a lot of people worry about.
I have only been there for 3 months, but I did sign a, W-4 form or whatever for the city of Detroit, so I assume...
It's 1.5%, right?
I will be getting... I have no idea.
And you haven't looked at your paycheck? You don't know what's happening?
Nobody's got time.
I ain't got time for that. Where the hell is that?
I'm sorry,
I ain't got time for that.
the QA girl doesn't QA her paycheck? That really?
No, I'm really bad about that, actually.
So for all you know, they're not even actually... Well, again, the timing is just spectacular.
Really,
it's not my department.
It's not my department.
And we had talked about one of the things we wanted to maybe touch on was the how to not suck at being a developer, which, because it does feed into the QA thing that it gets into, is listen to your tech leads and listen to QA.
We're there to help. That's what we're here for. Make sure that the application functions.
Funny, that's the same thing that cops say, and yet I don't trust them either.
Or the government says, yeah.
I'm from QA. I'm here to help.
Have you hit a situation where, had I only clicked that one button, had I only, tested that one last test case, something might have been saved from getting into production? And Hillary's vehemently shaking her head, so I'm going to go with yes.
Yeah, at a previous job, I'm obviously not going to say where, we as in the QA team, and I was the QA lead, so super shame on me for totally missing it. We had seen evidence of some kind of an issue, perhaps with data corruption in our testing, and in other environments, though, like in our virtual machines would no longer work for some reason. We just were like, it's some issue, some fluke of some sort.
Well, and the only thing worse than a bug that randomly appears is a bug that randomly disappears.
Right.
I think we all know that.
Well, and this is, it got dismissed as a fluke or some kind of weird environmental thing, and that's another thing that it's a no-no. There is not a fluke ever in software.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that people don't understand about software, code, computers in general, is that the good thing and bad thing about them is that they do what you tell them to, not what you want them to.
Exactly.
And so if they do something, they do it for a reason. And one of the things we were kind of touching on in the hallway, Chris, and I know this is something that a lot of companies kind of fall down on. So I was saying that, from my perspective, we've got, developers that run with their local machines and they do their unit testing and off they go. Then there's a QA environment that, you promote it into and you start hammering on a little bit harder and hopefully catch things before it gets into UAT, where, UAT is where you're letting your business users in it and hopefully is a pretty good replication and mirror of what you have in prod.
So testing is kind of like a big experiment. You're running a big science project within different environments. And in order to understand what's going to be different in each environment, you have to understand what is each environment consist of. So as a QA person, when I get into a job or a shop, my boss is my best friend because I want to make sure I'm making him happy. But my second best friend is the system administrator. I need to be right there with that guy and know what he's doing and how he's controlling the environments so that I can accommodate for those variances in my testing. If I can't accommodate for the environment variances in the testing, I cannot accurately report what I'm finding within the application functionality.
Well, but I mean,
communication is essential. If something changes and you're not aware of it, and you're testing something to an old version of the environment, then you're bumping up against something.
Feature X is broken. Why? Oh, I don't know. Could it be version 1.6 instead of 1.7? Yeah, that might be it. Did you bump it? Yeah. Okay.
Well, and I guess that's part of the issue there, though, is above communication is I want the latest, greatest, coolest toys.
Oh yeah,
and
right. Be the shiny penny,
right? And must have something to play with, and and getting that into a standardized, productionalized environment in a bigger company can be kind of a pain. But from what you were just saying, part of that communication with the sysadmin should be how to lock things down. Because no, there shouldn't be any differences in the environment from a QA UAT prod perspective. They should be if not identical from a, because no, you're not going to go out and build, 10 servers, 10 web and app servers in your prod environment, 10 web and app servers in your, in UAT, and build another 10, to have a QA environment. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, there are realities that factor into things.
And that's the biggest dichotomy probably in development is you have developers who are constantly, they embrace change, they embrace that shiny new penny, and they want to make sure that the latest features and functionality is put in the app. But you have these system administrators who control change. They like stability. They like to make sure it all works. Their job is to protect production. And so you have two opposing viewpoints
there. They are
there.
the gatekeeper.
Yes. You have two opposing viewpoints, and they want to make sure that everything just works.
I remember back in the day, we would actually have multiple hardware environments with multiple operating systems and browsers installed back before there was virtual machines that were readily available.
The QA lab, you had boxes on the wall.
You would have boxes on the wall with running IE6, running IE 5.5 on the Mac environment that was before 10.0. All these different hardware environments.
Yeah, I know. A little piece of me I just opened my mouth a little bit too. That's
What?
Yeah, IE 5.5.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it exists out there somewhere. That's what's scary.
It falls in the realm of not my problem.
Right.
But then you have the developers that not only want that shiny penny, but they want it in prod too. And they bypass everything else and put it in prod, and suddenly prod's failing. Why is prod failing? Test isn't failing. Beta's not failing.
Has there ever been a situation where, like, the CEO or some yuppity up higher up that says, make this work now, get it done, bypass QA or bypass the second stage of testing, just get it out there,
Oh yeah, I've had that happen. So
and how do you respond? Like
the CEO sends me a message and says, I want this page to look like this yesterday.
Make it done.
Yeah. And with the permissions and the stuff, after learning and being in the shop a little while, I was QA tester. I could read it, I could code it, I could commit it, I could build it, and I could push it to production all in 5 minutes.
And does that go against every grain in your
absolutely it does.
It's even worse when that person, that CEO or whatever, is also a developer
and should know better.
And should know better. And laws,
well, they bypass the whole project
or whatever.
They bypass the whole process on purpose.
They do. I'm going to push it to prod. Everything's going to work great, and then it fails, and customers are calling.
So no one ever challenges them.
Well, but it's being a parent 101. It's do as I say, not as I do. I mean, it's,
exactly. Of course.
How many times have you heard me say my job is to get it? My goal is to get a job that starts with the letter C.
Yep.
Whether it's CIO, CTO, CEO, because they pay you a giant. Yeah, they pay you a giant bag of money to come in. They pay you a giant bag of money while you're there, and then no matter how badly you screw up, they pay you a giant bag of money to leave. So
Dave will make you the chief troublemaker of DetroitNet.
So yeah, to Jeff's point, how. Because there is a political dynamic there, and it's it's something that we all have to deal with day to day. That's
another middle ground that QA gets caught up in. So you have this idealism that QA wants things to be perfect and good and working, and you have the business which is pushing it to say get it out there, and get it in the user's hands. So there's another people skill that comes in with quality assurance.
You guys are just a speed bump. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
we are the bottleneck. Yeah.
Right. It is just to make sure that there's a balance between, we know what you want, business, and we want to get it to the users quick, but we also wanted to make sure that it's good and it's working. And so that's really the balance in the middle ground that QA has a really hard time, and that's that negotiation that QA has to work with on both sides.
Yeah, it's okay, great. You can have it in 2 days, but it's going to be broken in production, and that's awesome.
So it goes back to culture in a business. So if you have a corporation that has a good culture that values your role in the development life cycle, and it's not just slapping a label on it saying, okay, these guys are QA, but they're going to ram something through regardless.
They're going to do whatever I say, kind of thing. Yeah.
Right.
Well, but it's on that front. QA is no different to some degree than security, than disaster recovery, than anything else.
It's a business decision.
Well, it's easily blown off until something goes sideways.
Right,
and then you go, I should have had the home warranty. I should have paid the extra $4 a month for flood insurance as there's an arc in my basement. It's true, very, very true. So, and I guess as you're looking for a QA gig, and you've both been through this somewhat recently. How do you how do you gauge ahead of time what your role and what your place is in the company, and how is that matched up for you with the actuality of being there?
Interview the manager, talk to him, see what his philosophy is, figure out where his pain points are, and then try to understand the seat that he's in. And then once you do that, you can figure out where you can be successful for him as a team and as a quality assurance checker.
Hillary has a completely different viewpoint.
The only thing that I have to say there is that if that person, if the boss or CEO or whatever is a salesman himself and he's selling, this is a quality shop, I care about quality, I want quality to be
Well, and I think we all
one.
know that sales guys are not to be trusted.
Exactly, because he's falling asleep again. That is how I got into trouble before with that, because I was sold to me, this is a quality shop, we care about quality, quality is the last stop, and then I'm going over your head because I don't care about quality. I care about getting
time to market and speed. And, yep.
Right, and I know everything and whatever, but you can read my article about that if you want.
You did have something published in a UK publication, didn't you?
I did, in a testing publication.
And that's the problem with the internet, is that even though it's published in the UK, everyone still finds it, and that's how it is.
It's the Testing Planet, by the way. If you'd like to read my, I think, 9 ways to be a horrible leader, they're all true examples in that article.
Well,
Give yourself a shout out. Where can somebody find that?
Testingplanet.com. I don't know.
Alrighty then.
And search on 9 ways. I don't know. I'll tell you what. Here's what we'll do. We'll give you it's Geek Lady, but it's G because she's elite. G, and I'm sorry, the eye roll can't translate over the radio.
Right,
it's G33K Lady.
Yeah, and I've had this account for
ever since the movie Hackers came out.
Maybe before that.
Kind of predates Twitter, doesn't it? Maybe about 12 years.
It came before Twitter. 2007
That's what she said.
Is when I... Thank you, Dave. 2007 is when I opened this Twitter account with this handle, which I've had before that. But yes.
So yeah, hit her up. She'll shoot you a link.
I am cool.
Or actually, you know what? All things being equal, if you hit me with a link for it, we'll throw it in the recap for tonight's episode, along with all of the Bob's head explosions that I'm going to be putting in there as well.
The fascinating discussion by Bob.
He's falling asleep.
Is this thing high?
No, I haven't turned you off yet.
I did notice Dave put my volume like 3 octaves lower than everybody else.
Yes.
Well, that's because your voice is loud.
You're loud.
You're a towel.
Superman is guarding the soundboard.
Come on, Bob. What's the deal? You
is
down with
outstanding.
your last beer there?
No, there's still 4 more in the 12-pack, so I'm going to make sure those are gone before I leave.
Outstanding. Any parting words from a QA perspective?
One of my big things about testing software is, the investigative, the inquisitive part. So not only does that translate into the project or the application that I'm working on, I ask people that I work with, what do you use and why do you use it? And I always find some tidbit of something that they key in on their app. I use Linux because it allows me a command line prompt, and I like that. I'm better with words. Or I use this application because it's got feature XYZ. And so when we were talking about different shops and having .NET versus PHP versus Java, you have all these different testing tools that you can interact with in order to validate that stuff. And you need to make sure that being a tester is also being flexible.
I would assume the same restrictions are placed on a QA person that are on a dev. You're not going to hire you might not. You'd be less likely to hire a PHP developer to come into a .NET shop. So is there a benchmark, a language that the QA world needs?
There's a couple of different tools out there. There's an industry standard, as you were saying, like .NET shop versus one of the other ones. The .NET Team Foundation server has some of its own testing tools built in. If you want something that's a little bit more robust, you can have a shop that's got Quick Test Pro and Quality Center. That works. I hate Quick Test Pro. It bombs.
Is Eric Davis your boyfriend?
No.
Oh, because he had the link for your article awfully handy.
Right, I know. No, he's not.
You have a fan.
We're buds. It's cool.
Oh.
So other industry standards you have.
That's your story. You're sticking to it.
My boyfriend's not on Twitter. Eric
Go ahead,
is not
Chris.
my boyfriend.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm actually listening.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate that.
I'm not.
We already knew that. Thanks, though, Bob. There's a couple of different things out there, but truly the QA Testers tool belt is a conglomeration of lots of different things, and there's not one thing that's better than another.
You're kind of at the mercy then of going into a company in whatever tool set they're using. So if you're versed in one stack of tools, and you would probably know that going in as part of the interview process, right? But I mean, that would be a huge disadvantage if you put all your eggs in one basket, right? As a developer
absolutely.
trying to learn the trade or getting into that industry, is it worth your while to dabble in all of them
Oh, sure, just for knowledge and to be able to understand what the different strengths and weaknesses of each of them. I mean, you got QuickTest Pro, which it costs a pretty hefty license in a shop, and they have to support that because the individual tester isn't going to be able to, versus open source software, which is a little bit more parts and pieces, and you got to cobble it together, and you got to add some code in there, and it takes a little bit more skill and knowledge. So you're weighing the balance of easy to use and expensive versus a little bit more codey and tough to pick up.
And I guess to that point is also, if you don't have experience with those tools, passion, willingness to learn, excitement about technology in general. Like for my job, I didn't have experience with automation in general. Like I wrote Perl scripts prior to this because I was in a Linux shop.
Perl, the duct tape of the internet.
It's fantastic. I love Perl.
That is my favorite quote from you. It really is.
It truly is.
Yeah. You should get a quarter every time somebody says that, because you'd be a millionaire right now. And it's so true.
So, but now I'm using QTP and Microsoft Test Manager with TFS and, learning. But I'm, it's the passion, it's the willingness to learn.
Goes back to our buzzword earlier, people skills. That is a key. And people undervalue that so much. But it's very crucial to being successful.
All right, well, I feel like we ought to at least wrap up here by saying that you can find us on DetroitNet.org. We have one of our events coming up on July 18th at the Blackfin in Royal Oak.
Back room.
501.
Always the same start time. And I'm willing to bet that at least one person in this room right now will not be there because they might be dead, killed off by the other people. So, Bob, want to do your closing outro, and off we go?
Just thank you for listening. IT and the D, Raw Radio X. See you guys next week.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
That's all, folks.
Eastbound and down, loaded up and trucking. Are we gonna do what they say can't be done? We've got a long way to go and a short time to get there. I'm eastbound, just what